All right, I wanted to show really quickly how to install Visual Studio Code in our Kali box, as well as get it set up for Python development. So we're going to go ahead and double click on our Kali image. You'll find that most of the stuff is already there. We just have to tell it it's there. We have to tell the applications that it's there. Python's already installed, so we don't have to worry about that in Kali. But a decent text editor, as far as like from an IDE perspective, isn't installed. So we're going to go with Visual Studio Code. It's freely available. It's available on Windows, Linux, and Mac. So we can have sort of a consistent experience no matter what kind of computer we're on if we're using that as our development environment. So I'm going to go ahead and go full screen. First things first, I'm going to open a terminal. I almost always do this, and I type ping google.com just to make sure I'm online. It could be ping aol.com. I can check my IP address by typing curl https, or actually it's really just curl ifconfig.me. That'll tell me my outside IP address, my internet facing IP address, my public IP address. So curl ifconfig.me. So those three little tricks for you real quick. That one probably answers as many questions as anything else. It's just easier to remember pinggoogle.com. Okay, so we're going to go to the start menu, or rather the application menu, open up Firefox. And I'm just going to, in the address bar at the top, I'm going to search for Visual Studio Code. And it looks like it'll take me to visualstudio.com, code.visualstudio.com. That's what we're looking for. And we are on an Ubuntu, a Debian-based operating system. So I'm going to click Deb. All right, so it's popped up this little box asking me if I want to open the file or save it. I'm going to save the file. Okay, and it looks like that download was completed. So when you download things on your computer, just like on a Windows machine, they usually end up in your downloads folder. So if I go back over to my terminal right here, and I list the stuff, I can see I have a folder called downloads right here. If I CD into downloads, I can look around in there. I can list the stuff that's available in downloads. And you notice I have this file called code156, and then, just basically a version number, amd64.deb. Debs are one of the ways you can install applications in Debian-based Linux. Sometimes you get .targzs. You have to extract those. Those are kind of like zip files. This is kind of like an installer for Windows. So what I have to do in order to install this is I'll type sudo to run it as administrator. And then I want to dpackage -i to install. And then I want to tell it what specific file to install. In this instance, I'm going to say code. And I can use tab to complete the command for me. All right. Now, of course, it's going to prompt me for my password. My password is KALI, enter. And it's going through, it's telling me that it's, unpacking the program, getting ready to extract it. It's going to set something up here and there. And then once that's done, we're going to take just a minute to configure the Visual Studio Code editor itself, just a little bit, and then we'll be ready to go. Once we get our little prompt back, we know that that previous program is done. So how could we start code? There's a couple different ways. We could actually just at the command line type CODE, code, and it should pop up the Visual Studio Code editor in here. Now, the very first time, it's going to ask you to customize the application. Do you want to improve the product? Let me see if I can't zoom in. I can't zoom in there any, but so let's do this. I'm going to just close that. It's telling me if I can, sort of customize it or any of these things. Really, I can just click the little X, just like the tab browser anywhere else. I'm zooming in to make the text larger in it, just like I would in Chrome by hitting the Control, Shift, and plus sign. And you'll notice that the icons are getting bigger as well as the text. So I'm gonna hit the Control N to create a new file. And it gives me this little option here. It says select a language to get started. Start typing to dismiss or don't show this again. I'm gonna tell it to not show this again right now. There's a couple of different things. Let's go and make this full screen. So we're looking at the full Visual Studio Code editor right here. This is like the folder explorer. If you have more than one file open, or if you open it with a folder, it'll show you all the files in here. This is the search, like find and replace kind of tools. If you're using version control, like Git, for instance, this and Git's really the only modern version control like thing that's really worth discussing right now. So maybe there's some others out there, but that's all we'd really be working with. There's a debugger, depending on which programming language that you're working on, you can use that. And then this is a very powerful part, the extensions. So by default, you don't have any installed extensions. Some of the most popular ones, you can see that Python is one of the most popular extensions. It has over 36 million downloads. I don't know how frequently that is, if that's in total or what. But this is all we have to do now. We have to install the Python extension as a bare minimum. And with any luck, this should come up, and it might say that we need to, reload the editor to sort of finish installing the plugin, but hopefully not too much more than that. All right, and so installing that one plugin sort of installed several others. So I installed that. Here it comes. It says disable, uninstall, so on and so forth. So it says it's enabled globally. That seems like we're ready to go. I can close the extensions menu by clicking on that icon again, and then I can close this tab that's open. So real quick, I'm going to create a quick Python script. /user/bin/python3, and I want to print install the plugin. I'm going to save that. Now here, unfortunately, I can't zoom in to show you exactly where I am. I'm just going to save this in my home folder as a file called installed_plugin.py. Now something cool is going to happen. You'll notice that I got syntax highlighting showing up all of a sudden. As soon as I saved the file, it knew that it was a Python file. And it also loaded this Python extension for me. There's the option at the bottom, like every time it opens a Python file, it will open this extension unless you have this box checked. So I'm going to click that, don't show the page again. Close that. Now there's something to pay attention to. This syntax with the parentheses around the print statement, that is Python 3 specific. That's not Python 2. If you look down here, it's detected Python 2 as the default Python on the platform, which is the case. Python 2 is no longer a real thing. So if you'll click on that icon, you'll say Python 391. That's the one we want it to point to. If we hit this play button, that should run this file, and you'll see the output of this program run down here. You'll notice this looks just like a terminal because it is a terminal. I can list stuff. I can CD into downloads, things like that. So it's a real terminal. If I want to get rid of that terminal, I can hit the X. We might want to try to change this globally. So what I'm going to do is hit Control-Shift-P, and that's going to bring up this command palette. And then I'm going to type settings. Now there's preferences, open settings, UI. I'm just going to look at the user interface. And what I'm going to type is, I'm going to type the word interpreter because I know that's what I'm looking for. So Python, default Python interpreter, path to Python. You can use a custom version of Python by modifying the settings to include the full path. So rather than just being regular Python, let's look at what happens when I type just Python. If I type just Python, I end up with Python 278. If I type Python 3, I end up with Python 3.9. You can see this version of Python's like almost a year old. This is, several months old at this point. All right, so I'm going to type /USR, Universal System Resources, bin for binary, and then I want to point to Python 3. And then that should be all I have to do. The settings are automatically saved. You can see that it says saved automatically right here. All right, so I'm going to leave that open to show you this. Now I'm going to close Visual Studio Code. I'm going to go to my application menu, and I'm just going to search for code up there, or Visual Studio, VIS Visual Studio. That's that icon. It's kind of like a bow tie or half of a bow tie. If I type code again, it shows up there. I'm going to hit enter. What's nice about this is that it'll keep your previous tabs open. What's really cool about this, I'm going to hit Control New, and this is a file that is not saved. I'm going to close my window, and if I bring it back, hopefully it'll still be there, otherwise I'll look foolish. I use Visual Studio Code to take notes because sometimes things happen. Computers crash. So if I had a scan results or I had something else in there and I wanted to save it, rather than leaving it in the terminal, put it in Visual Studio Code. It's best to save your work, but if you forget to save your work, it is helpful in that it keeps track of unsaved files. So let's see, that's really all I wanted to show you for Visual Studio Code at the highest level. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, feel free to reach out. Thanks.